You think extremism happens because people suddenly became evil? Wrong. Most of the time, people just suddenly became poor. The cruelest blow of the Great Depression in Europe wasn't banks collapsing. It was an entire generation realizing you can follow the rules and still not survive. When legal life gets switched off, illegal passion gets switched on. That's the invisible war. Imagine Europe after 1929 like a machine that's lost power. Orders evaporate, wages shrink, factories go dark. Money doesn't slowly fade. It's like someone twists the faucet and it's suddenly gone. Banks scream, governments pretend to stay calm, streets tremble, unemployment lines get longer, bread gets thinner, tempers get shorter. What you hear isn't speeches, it's stomachs roaring. The official story is straightforward. Wall Street crashes, the global recession spreads, Europe's exports collapse, unemployment rises, society destabilizes, and extremist parties exploit the vacuum. It sounds like the economy got worse, so politics got ugly. But here's the problem. Lots of countries got poor. Why did Europe slide into an age of extremes instead of building a stronger welfare state? The truth isn't just poverty. The truth is, some countries were knocked down by poverty, but others were dragged under by chains of policy and institutions. Have you ever considered that what actually tightened around Europe's throat wasn't the market, but a set of rules it worshipped? Here's the dirty secret: the morality of austerity and the flight of global capital. When crisis hit, many European countries were still shackled to the gold standard. They couldn't print freely, couldn't devalue easily, couldn't rescue too aggressively, or capital would punish them. So governments did the most respectable thing: cut spending, raise taxes, squeeze wages. It sounded responsible. In reality, it poured gasoline on unemployment. Meanwhile, terrified American capital rushed home. International credit froze. Germany and parts of Central Europe, already carrying World War I reparations and foreign debt, lost oxygen overnight. Banks didn't mismanage. They were suffocated by design. Deflation makes debt heavier. The more you pay, the less you can breathe. And here's what's worse. When a government treats people's suffering as a necessary cost, people start looking for a necessary enemy. The consequence wasn't simply being poor. It was the collapse of social psychology. You lose your job, not because you're lazy. You go broke, not because you're stupid. And yet the system still throws you away. That produces the most dangerous emotion of all: humiliation. And humiliation needs an exit. Extremism offers cheap clarity. It's not policy failure. It's they who stole your job. It's not broken banks. It's internal enemies who betrayed the nation. It's not a complicated world. It's a list of people who must be punished. It translates economics into moral hatred and pain into permission for violence. The absurd part? Many weren't convinced by ideology. They were bought by the illusion of rescue. If someone promises you order, work, dignity, you'll tip your freedom like spare change. The moment it started to look like war wasn't when the first shot was fired. It was when the crowd applauded. Torches lit the streets. Slogans hit walls like waves. Radio poured anger into every living room. You watch arms rise, like raising an invisible blade. In that moment, Europe wasn't choosing policy. It was choosing fate, trading fear for safety, hatred for explanation. The map's colors begin to darken, like ink, soaking through from the inside. Don't treat this like an old film, because when living costs spin out of control, extremism doesn't need to return. It only needs to be downloaded. The hidden legacy of the Great Depression is a cold rule. When economics pushes people into a corner, politics pushes them toward the cliff. When wages can't catch prices, when housing and energy become luxuries, societies start to hate complex answers and crave simple enemies. And platform algorithms amplify outrage, because outrage holds attention, travels faster, and monetizes better. Austerity stops being just a budget choice. It becomes emotional engineering. Populism stops being just a slogan. It becomes a business model. You think you're voting for policies. Sometimes you're voting for a story that gives your pain a target. So here's the punchline. The Great Depression didn't drag Europe into an age of extremes. It proved something darker. When economics creates despair, extremism shows up claiming to save you and collects the debt. Next episode, we'll go sharper and more dangerous. When the next crisis hits, who gets dropped first and who gets mobilized first? Don't blink.